So, good morning, community. And today we're going to talk about some real basic things. I wanted to go back over some basic things for us to keep in mind as we continue to get through this pandemic. There's a lot of things going on, the vaccines, people are still getting infected with COVID-19, and of course we have the long haulers. So today we're going to go over what you should be doing if you haven't been infected, or if you're infected and you have mild to moderate symptoms, and kind of focus on those two things. What can we do to strengthen our immune system? The first thing I want to talk about is this little gadget, which is called the pulse oximeter. Your finger goes into it. I think that everyone should have this in their home. What this measures is your pulse, and the normal pulse is about 70 to 80. If you get infected with COVID-19 and your pulse gets up to be 100, 120, that's a problem when the pulse starts to go up above 90s, 8, 99. The other thing that this measures is your oxygen saturation, or the amount of oxygen you have in your body. We want that to be about 98 to 100. Normally that's what it is if you don't have any problems. When the pulse oximeter gets down to 93, 92, low 90s, that's the time when you should be thinking, I may need to be going to the hospital, because you may, your body may be starting to go into like a viral pneumonia and you're not able to oxygenate well. Remember, it should be 98 to 100. And so if you're in the 90s or high 80s, your body is not oxygenating well, and off to the emergency room you should go so they can get on top of any kind of respiratory infection that you might have. Where can you get these? I'm going to leave a link below where it tells the best pulse oximeters. I mean, the medical field, we in the medical field have ours, and there's a report that shows the best pulse oximeters, the ones that are more accurate and are going to be sturdy and last. But we definitely want, I think that this is important, because this could save a person from getting too far down the line, and then once their oxygen drops really low, then it's 911 and a whole lot of the other things. So remember, there's one thing that you want to keep in mind when you're using this pulse oximeter, and that is, if you have nail polish on, you want to take that, you want to remove the nail polish, because this pulse oximeter picks up the color of the blood, and if you have a colored nail polish on, it's going to interfere with the accuracy of the pulse oximeter. The second thing is something you may or may not have heard about: monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies. There are man-made antibodies that, if given at a particular specific time along the timeline of a person that's positive for COVID-19, who's having mild to moderate symptoms, if these monoclonal antibodies are given at a certain time, it can prevent the person from being hospitalized and going on into the ICU and being intubated, etc. You want to give the monoclonal antibodies when the person, about day 3, when the person has mild to moderate symptoms. And also, these monoclonal antibodies are for a certain category of people. They're not for everybody. If you're greater than 65 years of age, if you have diabetes, if you have kidney problems, or you're obese, a BMI greater than 35, then this monoclonal antibody, it would be indicated for you. Mild to moderate symptoms fitting into that category. Another category is Anybody greater than 55 years of age who has high blood pressure. Well, that's a lot of people. Eli Lilly was giving the emergency use authorization for this monoclonal antibody, for monoclonal antibodies to be used for treatment. The one that I'm most familiar with is Bamlanivimab. Bamlanivimab. It's a monoclonal antibody that Eli Lilly came up with, and the FDA, they did the clinical trials on it, and the FDA gave its approval for it to be used, emergency use authorization for patients. It hasn't been used a lot because a lot of people aren't familiar with how it works, when it's supposed to be used, and what categories of people it should be used on. But basically, this antibody is man-made. It goes in to a person who has been infected with the virus, and it goes in and it attaches to the spike protein, whereby that inhibits the spike protein from attaching to your cells, to your lung cells, or any of the cells in your body. But it has to be given at that certain time when that person is having those mild to moderate symptoms, because again, we're trying to prevent this person from going to be admitted to the hospital or ICU or dying, or having these long-term, long hauler symptoms that we've been talking about. I would talk to your physician about that, ask them about that. It's something that is given IV, it doesn't necessarily have to be done at the emergency room, and over 1 hour. And the studies, they've done the clinical studies on it, and it does work. It decreases the viral load, and it also increases the inflammatory cells that are needed to attack the virus. So we've talked about the pulse ox, and we talked about the monoclonal antibodies. And by the way, that was the treatment that President Trump received when he was infected with COVID-19. And if given at that particular time, it can divert a lot of the typical symptoms that one might have. And that may have been why he kind of turned around quicker than we all had anticipated. So let's talk about a few other things that we need to just be aware of. And I'm really focusing on people that haven't been infected or people that have mild to moderate symptoms. What can they do to strengthen their immune system? Vitamin D. There was a lot of talk initially about vitamin D. It does help, it doesn't help. Well, there's been clinical trials that do support the use of vitamin D in terms of really helping your immune system to ward off this virus. Not saying that it prevents you from getting COVID-19, but it strengthens your immune system. So your probability may be a little less than with this vitamin D. And so we want people to understand that vitamin D is helpful, that it is recommended, but again, talk to your doctor about vitamin D. Most people around the world are talking, and people say, well, how much do I take? Most people would say about 4,000 international units per day. 4,000 international units per day. You know, there's some people that take less, some people take more, but generally what I found was about an average of 4,000 international units a day. Now let's talk about, there's some encouraging evidence also that support minerals as like K2, mineral K2, and also magnesium, also really synergistically or really trigger and catalyze vitamin D to do what it does. So in other words, taking K2 or magnesium, along with that 4,000 international units of vitamin D, may really help your immune system. I think of our immune system as our superpowers. And so we want to, during these times, whether you've not been infected or you're going through the infectious stage, I think about, strengthening our superpower, which is our immune system. And that's what vitamin D does. Another mineral that has been shown to be very helpful is Curositin. And there's been a lot of compelling evidence that shows that Curositin, along with the other vitamins and minerals that we've talked about today, really can have a positive effect on our immune system. So I would add that in the list of things that you need to talk to your doctor about in terms of strengthening your immune system so that you possibly don't get infected, and or if you are infected, you're taking these different vitamins and minerals and you don't end up being in a severe condition. The next one is zinc. I'm sure people have heard about zinc sulfate. The dose is about 40 milligrams. And again, that's another mineral that we can use that will help our immune system to stay strong and to ward off the severe effects that the COVID-19 virus may cause. The last thing that I'll mention, and one of the things that we need to really be mindful of, is that we have to get enough rest. Melatonin, you can buy it over the counter, 10 milligrams, has been recommended to take to help people get proper amount of rest. And so melatonin 10 milligrams at night, it's recommended. Most people will recommend in terms of trying to keep our immune systems and our bodies strong and keeping warding off that COVID-19 virus. As a matter of fact, it's been said that when you get the vaccine, it's recommended that you get a good night's sleep, 7 hours plus, the night before you get the vaccine. It's been said that if you do get a good night's sleep, that the side effects from the vaccine are less. Get your proper amount of sleep, and again, keep your body hydrated, and let's keep ourselves strong. And even if we get infected, let's continue to take the things that are going to help us keep us out of the hospital and help us not to have severe symptoms, and certainly help us not to have these long hauler symptoms that could possibly develop after the virus is gone. Those are some of the things that can really help us out getting through this pandemic. The last thing I want to mention is, if there's someone in the household that's positive for COVID, of course, you want to quarantine them, but more importantly, make sure that their room is ventilated. Now, put them in a room where there's a window and crack the window. We know the virus is airborne. Probably even more important than wiping things down is keeping a window cracked open to keep things circulating in that room or that space that they're in. And then the other part of the home, you want to make sure that you maybe crack a few windows, maybe crack the door open for a certain amount of time during the day. And that keeps air moving, and that keeps any virus that's airborne moving. And of course, the mask, the social distancing, the washing the hands, and also wiping things off is important. Thanks. I know this was a little long today. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. And if you would like to subscribe, hit the subscribe button below, and we'll keep giving you information every week. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.